Hey gang, check it out. Austin Music Foundation is excited to share the first 5 songs from year 4 of our Artist Development Program, available exclusively on Bandcamp. 5 brand new original singles from DZ Brown, Aubrey Hayes, Drint, Pelvis Wrestling, and Stone Wheels. Your $5 donation will help Austin Music Foundation continue leading the way in producing innovative, career-advancing programs, including the Artist Development Program. Every dollar over the suggested donation will go directly to these worthy artists. Check it out today at austinmusicfoundation.bandcamp.com. That's austinmusicfoundation.bandcamp.com. Get involved. Attention Austin guitarist, are you in need of setup or repair on your axe? Well, I have the guy for you. That's my friend Jason Swedberg over at J. Scott Lutherie. You can find him at J. Scott Lutherie on Facebook. Gang, I've been taking my guitars to Jason for over 20 years, and not only does he do the very best job, but he has the fastest service and the best prices in town. Find him at J. Scott Lutherie on Facebook or jason.swedberg@gmail.com. Gang, whether it's acoustic or electric, Jason is your guy. Get your guitars fixed.
And you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here?
It's time for How Did I Get Here? And now here is your host, Johnny Maldi.
All right. Hello, I'm Johnny. I'm your host coming to you one day late. I'm dropping this show a day late. I lost some days this week. This was a crazy, crazy week for all of us. Insane. Started off great. It did. It did. Got to have breakfast with an old friend, and I saw a couple of other friends and watched a movie on Monday night. Went in and filmed a video on Tuesday at my friend Gabe's house for a song that we wrote. It's going to be animated, so this video might take a little while before it comes out, but we shot some green screen stuff. And then my aunt got sworn in as a judge on Tuesday. That was great. Then it looked like the election was going well. It looked like the Senate was going to turn blue, which was very exciting. And so Wednesday, I woke up, I had some emails to return, and I thought, like, well, I'll do this and you know, turn the TV on and watch history unfold in real time. Watch the Senate and the Congress, you know, elect the new president. So I'm watching this, and obviously the riots started and all that shit, and then I was glued to my TV for 11 hours, like probably the rest of you were. You know, just stuck to it until you went to sleep that night, exhausted. And then Thursday I got up, and normally I do these intros on Thursdays, you know, for Friday's show. And Thursday I couldn't really unglue myself from trying to find some kind of news source that was going to give me some kind of answer to some, I didn't know. I was in this odd shock, you know. What I saw on, what we all saw on Wednesday, you know, those people all over the Capitol, even when they were on the outside, it just reminded me of what was happening in Cuba before my family left, like when Castro took over, exactly like it. It's like, you know, globbing on to a person as opposed to an ideology or the law. There's like this sort of like intense, I mean, you could see it, you know, even the people that weren't committing any crimes, and the people that were even peacefully protesting. They're not holding up, some of them are holding up American flags, but they're holding up and wearing a guy's name, not an ideology. These aren't like Republicans per se. These are people that are into this guy per se. Their name is all over, his name is all over their clothing. They're waving flags with his name on it. One guy even took the American flag down and put his name flag up. That's pretty big, you know? And there were people there going to cause some harm. I'm not saying that everybody there, the protesters that, that were peaceful, but the people that went into the Capitol, there were some people there to do some harm. I saw pictures of a guy with those Ziploc handcuffs that cops use. There's some people there probably going there to do some harm. And really at the direction of the President of the United States. We'll always have conspiracies. They live on the fringes. You don't even hear about it unless you know somebody that's into a conspiracy. You know what I mean? Like normally you don't even hear all of them. But those conspiracies get validated. And these fringe people that live out there on the edges get validated by the person in charge of the most powerful country in the world, validating and spouting and espousing those conspiracies. There was no voter fraud. We heard it. We saw all of for the last couple of months, we've seen this whole thing go down. We've seen more than 50 courts reject their claims. There's been no actual proof shown anywhere. There's just a bunch of crazy stuff, a bunch of crazy talk. Crazy talk by a man who's led by his ego. And that ego trickled down, like that sort of like egotism turned into worship by these people that felt like they had to take the law into their own hands on his behalf and save America from this treacherous thing that hasn't happened. It's just something that this one guy is saying. So, I don't know what's going to happen. And I am freaked out, and I didn't really know what to say. I didn't want to come on here screaming and yelling and talking about how angry I am as I'm trying to hold in a burp. I felt like I needed a couple of days kind of to process what was going on and where my head is at during this thing. I don't know where your head is at, but it is a difficult time. I mean, this was a shocking thing to see, It was as shocking as it was, as this whole year has been, the whole 2020 experience. For some reason, I feel like I'm still in 2020. So anyway, then he gets kicked off Twitter, and the same thing that I was talking about last week or a couple weeks ago on the intro, maybe in the last episode, is how are we going to stop being addicted to this guy and what he says and trying to find out what he says and what'd he say, like that whole thing that we all do. And if you don't do it, well, more power to you. But I don't like the guy, and I can't help it. I'm always wondering what he's going to say. Even when they kicked him off Twitter, like permanently, I was like, how are we going to find out what he says? Because I would love to hear what he's saying about this right now. And that sort of addiction is something I guess we had to take it cold turkey, We have to do it cold turkey, man. We have to kick our addiction to hating someone. We have to kick our addiction to that and try and move forward and move in a more positive direction. And remember that what happened is fringe people. Like, this is not all Republicans. This is not, and I know that sounds weird. I'm not a Republican. I'm not into their scene. But also, what we saw the other day are people that are into Trump. That's what they're into. And he will be gone. Hopefully, not to return in a position of political power. Hopefully not. I don't think that his energy or his lies should be accepted anymore in the mainstream. He should move to the fringes. He should move into the world of Alex Jones. He should move into the world of QAnon, which he is, and just out of the mainstream. That stuff's going to exist. But it needs to stay in the fringes, because when it rears its ugly head in the regular world, it scares the shit out of me. And should scare the shit out of all of us. I think. Now, the main question is, outside of like, how will America keep on going, is how will I transition from this really weird intro into talking about how much I love my guest on today's show? Well, I do. My guest today is William Harries Graham. He's been on the show many, many times. He is releasing an album next Friday, January 15th, an EP called St. Clair. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a project that he did partially with the Austin Music Foundation's Artist Development Program last year, which he was a part of, and he got to play in the big show, and he actually recorded a couple songs there. One of the songs, which is available now already, it's called Confidant, I got to play keyboards on. So Frenchie Smith and Einar Peterson had a lot to do with these recordings. I got to play keyboards on this song, Confidant. It's a 5-song EP. All the songs are fucking great. William's a great, great songwriter. I've known him his whole life. He's been on the show a whole bunch of times since he was a kid. And because this show's been going on for a long time. He's in his early 20s, so he was like in his teens when he first started coming on the show. Like, I think he was like 14 when he first came on the show. Anyway, now he's a grown man. He's out there. He's been putting out records for quite a while. The Painted Red Starts, he had that band. He was putting together shows, like underage shows. And now he's a grown dude. We talk about what his life's been like for the last year under quarantine, what 2020 was like, what pushed him to put out this record, this EP that's so fantastic. We talked about recording together, how much fun it was. And always a great time talking to this incredibly talented, incredibly intelligent, and just one of the warmest and most loving human beings around. Please enjoy my conversation with one of my favorite artists around. This is me and William Harries Graham chatting it up. Let's get down.
It's always there, you just don't want to see it though. I am your confidant. I'm always running those circles in your head. It's a long way down, you know, to get to the bottom of the story. Get dressed and all get up.
Man, it's been a while since I've seen you.
I know. It's been weird. It's been weird kind of coming out of a little bit of a hibernation and like talking to people again.
yeah.
Being like, oh, it kind of just feels like time froze.
Well, are you and your dad still doing like your living room jams, or is that?
We've been taking a little bit of a break.
Okay.
We were doing it for a little while, and then
I remember at one point those were the highlight of my day when I would come across them.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah.
We were doing them for a while, and I think that everyone hit that point like during lockdown where it's just kind of like, I need a break from like every
yeah.
Like at first it was like, oh, we need to make up for, like, we had like the like, oh shit, what's going on, and then we were like, oh, we'll do these, and then it was kind of like, I need to just like not do anything for a little while.
Right. Yeah, I'm actually doing that in December. I'm going to Galveston for like 3 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, it's because I've been going this whole time too. Because you like, what do? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
this shit goes down. You don't have any gigs, and there's a part of, I think, of the drive of like an artist where you have to feel productive.
Yeah.
So you just start doing. Did you record any of this EP under quarantine?
Yeah. So it was I had kind of what I was just describing, where when we entered quarantine at first, because it was like right before South by Southwest, and like I think that I first, like when it was like really like South by Southwest got canceled, was like I was doing like a set of pop-up shows towards the beginning of South by, where I was doing different organizations or different bands, and one of them I was doing it with a close friend of mine. Cameron was going to play piano, and we were just going to do like a duo set, the two of us. And I got a text. The last time I was in a grocery store was Whole Foods the day that South by Southwest got canceled. Because I remember like walking down to the parking lot and getting a text from Cameron being like, South by just got canceled. And us being like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And then I would like didn't do like I don't know what your experience with it was, but it was like despite having the time that I always wanted to have to work on stuff.
Exactly. You didn't do it.
I was like, I have zero. I can't do anything. I don't have that motivation.
Yeah.
So like, it was like this period from like March until July where I messed around on like guitar, like, and I was like trying to write, and I just didn't like any of it, and none of it, like, it wasn't coming. I didn't have the spark. You know, it was great to be having that musical outlet of doing shows with John D for a while, but I didn't have really any of that click. And then I, like mid lockdown, was able, like, I kind of rearranged my collection a little bit to be able to purchase, this J50 from 62, because I'd been looking for a Gibson J50 for like years, basically.
Oh, nice.
And I think I needed a jolt of something new to like make me be able to do that. And then in July, I really started writing a lot again. I started getting back into things, and then I got to the point where I was listening to 4 of the 6 songs that are on the EP that I recorded at a session that you were at last fall. Yeah.
Oh, wait, so that's me playing on Confidant?
You're on Confidant.
Holy shit, dude. I'm so stoked.
I know.
Did you tell Einar and Frenchie you're releasing this? They're going to be so happy.
Yet. I know. I need to let them know. Because it's kind of all come together fairly recently. But yeah, so I was listening.
Hang on 1 second.
Good.
Oh, man, they came to inspect the fire detectors. Well, that's good, man. I'm safe.
It's always good to know. If something goes wrong, you're good.
Yeah, I'm good. Sorry, where were we? You were talking about you got serious. You had 2 more spaces on the EP.
Yeah. So I had those 4 songs, and you know, it's I one of the reasons why, you know, I was actually really excited to get to talk to you about the EP is because you have an interesting perspective of like kind of being there for some of that recording process. Cause we did, you know, 4 songs over like a one day. We didn't even start that early. We started at like noon. We went pretty late though.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. And it was a little bit of a hectic day recording those 4 songs also. Cause I remember, Chris Earls, who played drums, like had to leave halfway through the day and then come back like 3 hours later. So like we were like trying to, but it was a fun day and lots of good memories. But I was
I was singing our backing vocals.
That's still one of my favorite photos from that session. Is the drunken sailor.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
All right. So you'd recorded those 4 songs, and then.
Yeah.
So are those the tracks you're using on these, or no?
Yeah. So basically, what had happened was I recorded those 4 songs. The bare bones of what I wanted was there, and I had a very specific idea that I remember. I had a conversation with Einar before going into the studio, because background, I was part of the Awesome Music Foundation program with you, and
the artist development program.
The artist development program. And we were recording the compilation album, and you guys were giving each of us like a day in the studio, and I was talked about this a little bit, but I'd basically given this call to Einar right before we were recording, and was basically like, I know that I do not need one day to record a song.
Right.
Can I just record these 4 songs? Because I know exactly what I want to do. I basically had written 6 songs in like this 1 month period prior to that recording session. And I knew I could record these 4 because I knew exactly what I wanted for them. And I had this bare bones thing because we recorded live tracking, me, Chris Earls, David Goodrich, and then you and Einar added bass and Rhodes on Confidant. And I was really happy with how those came out. And I knew that there was still some stuff that I was like, I need to fill in these gaps, because the bare bones of what I wanted was there. But I always do this process of recording where I record everything because I want to have that live sound. And then I spend time going over it and like recording over and doing all that kind of stuff. And I think that my intention was giving it some space and then doing some of that this year, which, you know, as everyone experienced, right. Nothing went the way we planned this year.
No, nothing.
So I just got into an artist slump of like not really doing anything for so long. And then I came back and I was like listening to these songs again. And I was like, I like these a lot. So I entered this process in like, I was like listening to them a lot in like July, and I started writing again. And then like late August, early September, I had started my master's program, which wound up going really well with COVID and everything, because I considered taking time off of academics and just focusing on music for a while. But, you know, everything shutting down wound up working out perfectly that I was doing a master's program. But also, I think that putting so much time into starting a new master's program, I also started feeling that desire to get back to the creative side of things. So I started this process of listening to the songs and realizing, like, A, what is missing from the recorded songs, and B, how do I want to get these other two songs that I know have a place and that fit with this thematically onto this recording. And so that was basically a process of luckily, a lot of the people that I work with have, and everyone, it seems like over COVID, has developed a home studio setup. And I've kind of have my riggedy. I've gotten to the point where I can create the sounds that I want to create. And I can't do more than that. But I know that like I can get from point A to point B really quickly with what I have set up here.
Right.
And so, I was able to basically send certain tracks to people like Cameron Riggs, who is a guy who did piano across the record.
Oh, I have the question about who played piano on silent film.
Yeah. That's a really, really close friend of mine, Cameron, who I have known for about 4 years. And Cameron and my friend Tellis are like my two best friends who Tellis is John Sanchez.
Oh yeah, I've known Tellis his whole life too. Yeah. And so those two also were kind of the only two people that during like those like really, I mean, I'm kind of going back into the like not hermitage, not leaving my house stage, but like during all of that, they were like the only people that I would like every now and then like see 20 feet apart. But basically, I'd been wanting to work with Cameron forever, and Cameron's a brilliant pianist. He studied jazz piano at UT for years. He wound up switching about halfway through over to philosophy because he's also someone who is very easily, he just masters things really quickly, basically. And so I sent these tracks over to him. He played piano on I believe Fingerprints, Mr. Rodriguez, and silent film. Okay.
And that was one of those things where when I had him track those at his apartment, and he has a recording setup where he was able to do all of that. So we were able to do all of this stuff really easily and remotely and safely. And so he tracked those, and that really brought it together. And then it was a process of me going over the songs, adding different guitar stuff, which is something I've always done, which is a lot of, if you like expand out the tracks, it's way too many tracks on each of these things, because it'll be like, a half a second of like a tiny little like
right
humming note.
I was gonna say, because it still has there's some sparse sound to it still.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I really wanted to keep. I think that the most exciting and nerve-wracking thing about releasing this album or EP it's kind of that in between spot of 6 songs where it's a little bit longer than an EP and a little shorter than an album. Is that it is remarkably different, like really different from anything I've released before.
Yeah, it is.
It has electric guitars on it, but the electric guitars are almost all the spacey stuff. The most like close to like what I've done before, I guess, is like guitar lines that we had on Confidant, which was all Goody doing phenomenal stuff of
like the mirror,
yeah, which we spent about recording. That was a hilarious highlight of that session because we spent a couple hours being like just getting the timing right on that descending line. But everything else is acoustic. Like it was in the studio, you know, we literally recorded with a condenser mic at the center of the room and staggered us back where I was right in front of it.
Right. I remember
he was a little bit farther back. We put a Marshall at the back of the room, which he was running his acoustic through. So his acoustic was going through the pedal board into the Marshall. You were getting the acoustic reverberating sounds from that. Then he had his direct acoustic right in front of the mic with me. I was singing. I was playing directly in as well. And then Chris was just farthest back playing drums, which is not like a normal way to record, really,
No.
where you just are using a single mic, but gave it that super intimate sound.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I wanted to keep. But we were doing like, you know, Goody was using a guitar from like the 40s. That's like a reconstructed Martin. I was using like half of the songs recorded on like my grandma's old Silvertone parlor guitar from the 30s. And then a lot of the overdubs were done on my they're not even really overdubs because it's not like I was recutting anything, but it just was the layered guitars are done on it's mainly acoustic. And it was interesting moving through that of, you know, none of the records I released previously have had acoustic guitar on them, period. Like it's been all electric. Right. And so simultaneously, it feels really exciting. It feels like it's something that's different. It feels like a step forward that I wanted to take. It's also nerve-wracking to have something that is like so intimate and stripped back with that being the acoustic sound.
Right.
That was something that was really different to work on.
I got to tell you, I love double vocals, and like when I started recording on 4-track myself, it was always hard for me to sort of get my vocals audible, and I started doubling them. It sounded so cool. Yeah. And then like people like Elliott Smith, you know, and other kind of people, and then you go through history and you're like, oh, that's why I like that Bowie thing. He doubles his vocals there and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
What led you to do that?
I think that it's something that I've loved for years, you know.
It works with your voice real well.
Yeah. I think that you know, people like Elliott Smith, people like all of that. I think that one of my favorite songwriters of all time is this guy, Nico Stye, who's like more unknown, singer-songwriter guy who does a lot of that kind of stuff with layered acoustics. And, you know, also listening to like the newer Phoebe Bridgers stuff, she's a phenomenal artist who's really getting her due now. And she does a lot of that. And it was something that I always did in demoing and never did when I was recording records. And I think that one of the things about going into lockdown and, you know, when I was mixing this album, it was, I did all of the mixing and mastering myself pretty much. And I was able to do the overdubs myself. And it was a lot of me working.
You did the mastering too?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
I mean, like I've worked when I was doing work on the previous albums, I was basically in the room for all that kind of stuff. And so I've been able to like pick up on that. And it was one of those things where like I have loved everyone I've worked with. And it wasn't me not wanting to work with the people that I've worked with on that again, but it was having the separation of COVID. It was easier to like be like, I'm going to figure out how to do everything rather than me try to explain what I wanted to someone. Simply because I've always had a very clear idea in my head of this is the sound that I want. And it was working with people like, Stuart Sullivan, where the reason why working with Stuart works so well on Jake's is that I'd spent so much time, and we talked about this when I released that album, but I spent so much time working out those songs with George Reef that I knew what I wanted, and I was able to talk to Stuart, and Stuart instantly, I remember the first day we were recording Jake's, we were doing these guitar setups, and Stuart stops all of a sudden and goes, "Wait, I get it now. I understand the sound." He was like, at first I just thought that it was like a washed out like bass tone, but I get what you're looking at now. I get the sound that you're creating. And I think that it was like, that's why I love working with people like that. And, I think that it was super similar working with Frenchie when I was, because he produced those 4 middle songs. And I think that I wound up taking that approach of like, I was mainly like, a lot of this was mixed at like 4 a.m. because I would finish, studying for master's school at like, midnight. And then I pour myself a glass of whiskey, turn off all the lights, and like start trying to, mix stuff with like, the setup I have here with like studio monitors, and also, just listening on like AirPods, listening on any speaker.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
All of that.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out like how do I get the sound that I want on as many different, how do I find that medium of like, it'll sound great on like the big monitors I have here, but I also want it to sound like I want it to sound if you're listening on your your $9 dollar store AirPods.
Right.
And so that was really a phenomenal experience as well, was working through all that kind of stuff and getting that sound that I really wanted, and mixing all of that together. Having Mike Meadows, who was not, this is one of the first albums in a little while that I've worked on without Mike, because Mike is pretty much a drummer that I play with most frequently, and I got to work with Chris Earls on this, which was just phenomenal, and Chris was perfect for this project. Like literally working with him in the studio was phenomenal. And I've had this privilege of working with people like Chris and working with people like Mike, who are like 2 of like these like drummers that I've idolized since I was a child.
Yeah.
And known since I was a child, pretty much.
Yeah.
Getting to play with those people. And then
didn't Chipman also play with you for a while?
Chipman is one of the other people who I play with frequently as well. I mean, like and then also Joey Sheffield from Fastball. Like I don't know how I've been so blessed to get to work with the people that I have. And just knowing all these people. I think that was one of the things that I've always appreciated, and I've always Jake's was another thing where I was doing this really heavily. I was working with people that I wanted to work with, and I think that when I was working on this EP, though, was the first moment where I realized that I was doing this not for a reason like I wanna I wanna like make it, or like, not that I ever had like I had that thought, but like I didn't know what I was doing necessarily, like what is the goal. And I think I figured out like, oh, the thing that I've been like doing this entire time is I just want to like make music with people that I enjoy hanging out with.
Yeah.
I want to be able to like, it was just like a good, like, in the bubble for that day, like you, Frenchie, and our Goody, Chris, Chris Messina was doing like all of the engineering stuff, and Kenneth from the Cuckoos, was running around doing all of these different, like setting everything up. So it was just like it was just hanging with good friends, which is man. I think more and more what I'm like appreciating about music, and I think it's something we appreciate now, especially like not getting to do that as much anymore.
Totally.
But there's something special about that collaboration.
How are you? You were saying earlier that you didn't, you had the time to write when this first went down, and you didn't, like a lot of people, like myself. And do you think that you have kept yourself really prolific because of your weekly show? Like you can't You don't really want to do the same thing over and over again. And so did that keep you writing? Like, oh, I've got to have a new show for Wednesday or a new song for Wednesday or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that it is as much that. I think that the thing that I've talked about before and that Wednesday did do was that Wednesday was, I mean, not that I'm like saying this is a good thing or that anyone else should do this, but I don't practice with my band ever. Like I basically would give them songs and what Wednesday was our practice session of we've got one chance to do this song live and we're going to learn it now and we're just going to go for it.
Did you record those shows?
No. I think that there's like one or two of those shows that we have recordings of, but mainly it was just like, you know, it was our weekly hangout with like my best friends,
right?
Which is something I miss now, desperately.
Did your dad never make like a live at Continental Club?
He didn't make a live at Continental Club. He put out an album. Can't remember what its name is right now, but he put out a live album. That's just a collection of songs over the years. I think it's like 20 songs that have been recorded over like the last 25 years, 30 years at different places. And a lot of those were like from the Continental Club that were the live band shows that he did there. And that, you know, I was privileged enough to then, you know, have Steve, who, you know, is huge, close family friend, be like, you know, ask me to start doing those shows as well, and creating this time slot for me there. But that is something that I tremendously miss now, is not having that weekly hang of, you know, getting to see Abra, getting to see Goody, getting to see Mike, you know, Bobby Daniel, who is pretty much my primary bassist now. It was just like that was I got to hang out with the people that like I love the most, you know, every single Wednesday and play music with them. And I've tried explaining recently to some different people, like the feeling of not getting to have those live shows, which I'm sure is something that you've also experienced. Like there's nothing like that feeling of, you know, when you have like a twin reverb on stage.
Oh yeah.
And that's going with the drums and like the way it feels on stage of that wall of sound. There's nothing like that feeling. And I think that I've grown. I think that a lot of what wound up becoming this record also, though, was, you know, not having that made me be like, what do I appreciate about the other side of that? What do I appreciate about that really intimate sound? And that's where the two songs that we wound up adding to this EP, which are ironically the opening and closing tracks, which is Lady in White and then finishing with Aaron, which are also interesting, like polar opposites as far as the musical spectrum of the EP goes.
Aaron has like these electronic
elements. There's the one the one guitar on that entire song is just like it's one note being chugged in front of basically like these reverberating hand claps. And that's the only guitar across the whole thing. And the rest of it is just layered Wurlitzer keyboard, basically.
Oh,
and
wow.
then these drum loops, which I agonized over for about a month trying to get everything right. And then like these vocals. And that was a song that I had written and was not happy with how it was on an acoustic guitar. And then one day I was like, I'm just gonna like try, and I started playing around on piano with it. Ironically, actually, despite all of these being recorded on acoustic guitar, almost all of the songs on this EP were written on piano. They were written on one of my best friend Tiffany's pianos over that year when I would house sit for her, and I would have hours basically where I would just hang out at her house and play on this old piano she has. And that's like the base of a lot of it, because, you know, I think that sometimes when you're writing and you write on guitar so much, and I do guitar myself, but I also like, you know, I do guitar work for other people. Like I have that musical understanding of guitar. I know what, like, I'll stop myself from being like, oh, that's a cliche thing to do. And like, I can play piano, but I don't know what anything on piano usually is.
Right. So you're
it's
going to
just
come up
like
with
that.
different stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. You're not going to be like, oh, that's a stupid thing to do, William.
Right. Right.
You're going to be like, oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah.
And then transposing that over. But yeah, Aaron wound up being the song that it feels very thematically, as far as music goes, like a nice place of starting at this place where it really is super intimate. It's, you know, this weird open tuning that I started playing with like mid-quarantine, which is what Lady in White, which I'd written and then wasn't happy with as well. And then both these songs were songs where I really liked the thematic ideas of them. I really liked the lyrics of them, but musically it wasn't clicking. And then it clicked on this strumming pattern, this picking pattern I found for Lady in White, super broken down. The entire song is just like basically a hi-hat going, which is pushed way in the background. And then just me playing guitar over it, and then a second guitar part layered in there. Or I think there's actually like 4 guitar parts layered in there, but they make one guitar part together. And then moving through the album, we have this thing where it is very acoustic. It has a lot of different layers. It has a lot of different elements. And then we end up at a place that is one of different from anything I've done before in a different way, which is electronic. It's, you know, was driven by the drums. It's driven by piano. It's driven by sampling and layering those things together to create something that has a similar music feel to what is going on. But it was, when I'd come up with that, the song clicked lyrically where I was happy with it. It didn't feel as bare bones as it felt with just an acoustic guitar. And it also felt like I'm trying not to sound like artist pretentious-y about it, but it feels like, you know, we started a place of this quiet place and we move through, and there's a change that happens over the EP where we come out at this complete kind of rebirth musical sound that is something that is, it's not a departure from what I've done before, but it is something that is different in a way that felt exciting to me and felt rejuvenating in a way.
Yeah. You know, lyrically, there's a lot of longing to fall in love in your songs.
Yeah.
Are you like a folly and lovey guy?
Yeah, I mean,
you're not a playa.
No,
you know what I mean?
I don't think so.
You have that Uncle George quiet playa side.
No, talk about that.
People talk about that openly.
Yeah. You know,
He's
George.
a playa, man.
George was George.
He had it going on, yeah, baby.
But everyone loved him for it. Like,
of course,
that's
of course.
the thing.
Well, he was a genuinely nice person like you.
Yeah.
And he wasn't, you could think about it, he would be a total douchebag if we walked around talking about it all the time. You know what I mean?
I think that, but George is also one of those people that like was like genuinely cares about like everyone.
Yeah. So do you.
I hope. I'm glad that I come across that way.
I've been working on that for a while, man.
I don't know if I can see myself from the outside yet. But
no, do you like? What's your? I know this is weird to talk about, and it's kind of personal, but you know, like these songs feel personal, and that theme does run through it. Like the first song, "The Lady in White." I want to know. Is it what you say? I want to know. I want to know
why I don't know what love is.
Okay, I want to know why I don't know what love is. Okay.
Which I think that one of the other things is a lot of the lyrics over the album do get shaded in certain ambiguities and certain reverbed areas, which is something that you can pick out what they are, but it also has a certain mystery to them, which is something that I like preserving in my music. But I'm a total hopeless romantic in a lot of senses. And I think that a lot of this album is like I think that it was like questioning a lot of those types of things and coming to, I think that in the sense of like, it was recorded in a very intimate setting. And I think that also there's a lot of intimate songwriting that I did, where I wasn't necessarily trying to write about anything in particular, but I think it was going through those questions of romance and of love, and also what it is to, writing what does loving someone mean, in the sense of questions between like, when you're in love with someone versus, the love that you might still feel for someone, even once you're through that in love moment, I guess.
Yeah.
But I think that it's personal in that sense also, of just like, I never write about anything specific. I never really have. I think that if I try and sit down and I'm like, I'm going to write about this thing that happened to me once in my life, I will hate the song and never play it because it's too specific. And I like specific things in songs, but I don't like the song itself to be a specific thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's just the way I've always written. And I think that is just like this general, not soul searching. It definitely isn't that, but it's just a general,
kind of looking
like,
for an answer, right?
It's looking for an answer. And I think that it's just, yeah, I think that it's me just asking general questions about what that means to me, or what that means in general. Like what, I mean, if we look at like a song like Confidant, it's this question of like, not wanting to fall in love necessarily, or like the fear of falling in love, or that fear that we all feel when we like start to fall in love, which I think is just like asking questions about those general concepts of that. And I think that it's also something that, through writing those songs, in the summer and fall of last year, and then, moving through everything, I think I've like, there's a catharsis through like thinking through all of that type of stuff that makes it so that, I don't know if I'm asking the same questions anymore. I think that like as most artists, I'm sure that you understand this, go through like periods of our depressions.
Yeah.
But I definitely had some of that, like, especially like during mid quarantine, but like, I think that now I am at a place where, I'm genuinely really happy, and I'm genuinely, really happy with, not to go back to the EP too much, but like, I'm happy with how the EP turned out as this thing of, and I've always done this. The past two albums were similar, where I recorded them and then I kind of put them on the shelf for a little while and came back to them. But like, seeing that evolution of where they started to where they ended up was something that felt really satisfying. And I think that anytime I'm working on, a project, it does come to this thing of like this arc of like writing these songs, working through those concepts in my head, and then recording them and like having that separation from them for a while, and coming back to them and having that like full arc be like, okay, what was I talking about? What is the musical backing that'll support what I'm talking about? And I've never been someone who like writes too much about it, an idea of something. Jake's, I think I wound up figuring out that Jake's was to a certain extent a tribute to my childhood and growing up in Austin. But it wasn't like I was writing about that when I was writing Jake's. It took that separation to be like, oh, this is kind of what this is about. And I think that to a certain extent, because of that, Jake's wound up being this thing where I brought in a lot of collaborators, and it's a very open sounding album, and it's talking a lot more about like the past and my experiences losing people that were really close to me. And I think that this is a lot more of an internal monologue of an EP.
Yeah. Did I tell you that? Did I tell you that I love it? I didn't tell you that yet, did I?
No,
I don't think I
I'm
did.
glad.
I'll say it
You're
in the
one
intro
of
too.
You're one of the first people to have listened to the whole thing, actually.
Yeah, dude, I love it. It is It's great. And you know, man, I love I love the lo-fi double
Yeah.
vocals acoustic. Like I just love that sound. I don't
That's
know
the
why
thing.
that can't be a sound.
Yeah, I think that it's something that I think that it's more and more getting to a point where some people are embracing it. I mean, I think that if you see the stuff that like Bon Iver has been doing as of late, also he's leaned into that. I think that I got to a point where there's definitely certain ideas where we think that to make music we need to have a certain sound to like be like, this is the thing that people like, so we need to record perfectly like this. And I was always like, I mean, okay, but like also I want to leave in some of those like,
Me too.
I want to like one of my favorite things on the album. I mean, there's a couple things actually, but that I can tell you about. But one of them is is the beginning of Mr. Rodriguez has Frenchie who went into the room because we were recording on the condenser mic. We couldn't use we couldn't use a metronome in the headphones because the mic was so sensitive that it would have picked it up.
Right.
So Frenchie comes into the room, and the entire recording session of that song, Frenchie's standing next to us, giving us the tempo like this.
Yeah.
And you hear Frenchie count it in the beginning.
Yeah.
Which is something that I thought about. Like I could mix that out, but I was like, I like that. I like having that like personal feel. And it's also like I love the memory of like Frenchie's holding the dog during that also. Counting off holding this dog, which barked during a couple of the takes that we had to be like, oh no. And then another one is like, at the end of Fingerprints, Goody's phone starts buzzing.
Yeah.
Which you hear kind of in the background of Goody laughing, which I loved. It was also a lot of like Fingerprints was one that I really liked the song. It felt a little bit bare when I'd first recorded it. And that and Mr. Rodriguez clicked together when I had Cameron add stuff. And I wound up having like the straight take of this is Cameron's actual piano that he played on the whole thing. Then this is I pulled pieces from it.
That
I
you use
layered
the beginning
stuff.
and intro.
Yeah. For that beginning and the end, which I think went from it being this thing that just came in with the super strong, despite it being a kind of subdued song, it has this pushing guitar line at the beginning that is coupled with phenomenal playing from Chris.
Right.
But having that piano intro and piano lead out gave that more feeling and gave it this like gentle move in. And I think that when he also added piano and Mr. Rodriguez, it just gave it this glue where everything clicks together in a way that I really liked. And then my other favorite thing is that I was listening back to a lecture that when I was studying for a midterm, I was listening back to this lecture from a professor that I've gotten pretty close to, and that was the day that Aaron had finally clicked together in my head of like, this is the sound. And I'd come up with the guitar line for it, which is just that one note thing that I talked about before. And I was like, I'm going to lose this if I don't do it now. And so I didn't even stop recording the lecture, or stop listening to this recorded lecture. I just turned on my microphone and recorded this line. Right. And if you isolate it, you hear the professor talking in the background of the song.
Yeah.
And I was like, later on, I was like, I could re-record it, but it makes it feel alive. And so I think that a lot of the album was like me being like all these things that before I would have been like, I gotta fix it in post, gotta do all these things. It was more like, like right now I'm at a point where like I want to have it sound intimate. I want it to have a personal feel. I want it to sound, I mean, like this was the thing that we were talking about in the studio when we were recording the middle four songs. And I was talking to Frenchie and I was trying to describe what I wanted. And I basically said, I want it to sound like I'm sitting on the front porch with you just playing some songs at like 2 a.m. Maybe we're smoking some cigarettes, drinking a little whiskey, and I want it to sound like it's just like hanging out with a friend. And I think that that's why I made a lot of that decision to keep it more lo-fi and to have, I guess, as opposed to fix the lo-fi elements, lean into them a little bit more, is I wanted to have something that sounded different. I wanted to have something that had a feeling that was different than anything I'd done before.
Yeah, man. Well, you did. You really did accomplish it, and it's a gorgeous EP, and people can
Thank
go
you.
listen to it now because by the time this comes out, it'll be out and available to the people. Let me ask you a question, man. There was after Memorial Day and the murder of George Floyd, there was some serious. People did there was a lot of come to Jesus moments.
Yeah.
Both nationally and also locally, and in our music scene, which we are both part of and have been for a long time, and have been like in it,
Yeah.
What did you assess from things like what Jackie Benson's assertions and a lot of people's assertions, like, hey, we're not really included in a lot of stuff, and you think about it, and that seems to be true, that just by default, I don't think anyone's actively out there trying to keep black people out of the music scene. It just was set up that way, and we just kind of go with what we're dealt.
Yeah, I think that it's partial reverberations from systematic racism that Austin has had. I mean, I-35 used to basically be like this
The dividing
segregation line. Yeah. And I think that's I think that it's really messed up what that exclusion is. And it's something that like I really, everyone had like this come to Jesus moment with it. And I think that, people like Jackie coming up in the scene are a huge part of what makes Austin. I think that's like Austin has always been this melting pot of music, which is something that we've seen, since the 80s. And I think that not to get too far away, I mean, like the first thing that I would say is that I think that it's phenomenal that people like Jackie, people like
Chaka,
with the
guys like that,
the Black Pumas really coming up right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like giving these voice to this side of Austin that didn't have a voice before. And I think that it's something that's like just I think that everyone just like kind of fell into not acknowledging it as much for some reason. I think that it's something that people have done just in general. We get too comfortable with thinking that things have changed and don't still ask the questions of what can we be doing still. I think that that's something that like, not to make it like this is a completely separate thing, and I'm not trying to input my own experiences onto stuff, but it's something that, I've experienced, being disabled with like Perthes that I've struggled with, is actually like shockingly, as you might think, like I've had like really messed up discrimination stuff because of that. And I've had people basically yell at me and say that I'm not really disabled or stuff like that. And I think that everyone in general gets to this point where we're just so too comfortable with like thinking that things are better than they are. But I think that a larger aspect of those issues that came up in the Austin music scene around that time was something that I've been trying to talk about for a while now, is that we have this, like, we like to talk about Austin as this like music community. And like, I'm not saying that we don't have that. Like, I think that you and I have been very lucky to have fallen in like very similar music circles and, knowing so many similar people. But I think that Austin also has this issue of dividing into different groups that are very separated from each other and not as much of a large community. I mean, like, I think that if you just look at like, whether it's by genre or by, the people that play, the Mohawk and Empire Control Room versus, the Sea Boys and Continental Club crowd,
right,
or the Stay Gold and Sahara Lounge crowd,
right.
or the people that play the Moody and 310 and the Paramount,
right.
And we don't like. Why are we dividing it? Like it's just that's the thing that I've hated for so long. And before the shutdown, I was talking about it with it was one of the things I was talking about a lot with two of my really close friends, Jeremy Nail, who's a phenomenal songwriter and who I'm lucky to call a really close friend, and another friend of mine, Gordy Quist, who's a phenomenal
dudes, man. Yeah.
producer. And one of the things that we were talking about, not to get too far away from the question you were asking, is just like, what can we do to like create some kind of harmony in the Austin music scene? Like, why is it that people, whether it's for different reasons, but like I think that everyone has had a moment where you're like, why am I not being included in this thing that so many amazing people are? Like, why wasn't I asked to do that? Which is partially like the narcissistic musician thing, and partially just like like I think that there are these dividing lines that we just put in where it's like, well, this is my community. And like, I think that Austin is phenomenal because we have like, we have Skyrocket. We have, people like Alejandro Escovedo, my dad, John D, that whole scene. We have
Black Pumas and everything that Adrian does. I mean, Adrian does so much shit.
Created this huge, phenomenal, just phenomenal scene. I mean, Jackie's really started building out this phenomenal scene around her, and like she's just like, I mean, it was just amazing watching her her premiere for ACL was like,
it was pretty fucking awesome. Yeah,
she's just a powerhouse. Like, if we're just talking musically, like genius guitarist, genius songwriter. And then like the people like, that community that she's built around her because of that. And, like also like, I know that you had them recently. I haven't really gotten to know them very well, but, seeing like these bands like is it Nane, I believe? Nane. Yeah. Nane coming up where, that's another like part of Austin that like, that lead singer of that band is like just phenomenal, and like really also honoring, where he comes from in his music. Yeah. And like, we're getting to see this moment right now that I'm happy that is happening, where we're getting to see these voices of phenomenal musicians getting to express themselves and getting the recognition that they've deserved for so long.
Yeah. That's what I think people feel like when they go to a thing that's like, oh, here's Austin music. It's like Bob Schneider, Shiny Ribs. I'm trying to think of some other folks that are of that thing. And then sort of a token artist of color or ethnicity, a Jackie opening the thing, or you know what I mean, or Kalu or something. You know what I mean? It's sort of like time to sort of like just level the playing field and let everyone have a chance and just see who's great.
That's another person who's like, I've known Kalu forever, and he's just, I have nothing. Everything. I don't even know how to like describe how much I love Kalu. Like,
I
just
love that dude.
Beautiful songwriter.
And I mean, he's part of that
voice,
Continental Club
human
thing.
Yeah, and I think that there's inclusion of that. I mean, the Peterson brothers have also another amazing band that
and I mean, you
fall into that.
Steve's not a racist.
No, I don't think that I don't think that
Andy Langer isn't a racist.
None of these people are. I think that it's just that like I think it's what you said to begin with, is just like we got used to it, and it wasn't changed because of that. And I think that we're having an amazing moment right now that, I mean, it's overdue, but we're starting to see change. And I think that that is something that is amazing. And I think that, continuing to have people like Jackie spearhead that, and like, I think her just being like, I'm here and this is what we need. We need to do this.
Yeah.
Is like what we needed. We needed someone to be like, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And, I think that what's going to be amazing though is, as people like, as people like Jackie, people like the Black Pumas, which are really blowing up now, are expanding out further and further, is, what do you think the Austin music scene is going to look like in 20 years? Like, imagine what that can be. And I think that another thing is like, I'm hoping we have an Austin music scene in 20 years, especially given the toll that COVID has taken on this. That was, another conversation I've been having with so many musician friends, is like, Austin isn't going to be Austin without music and without the clubs that are here, without the bands that are here. And I think that before COVID, we were having this issue where Austin was becoming less and less affordable for musicians. And the thing that I would hate the most is to have Austin lose what makes Austin music, what makes this eccentric group of extraordinarily weird individuals that fall together somehow.
Yeah.
To lose that would be just like a tragedy, because like that's the thing that like I fell in love with. That's the thing I'm sure you fell in love with when you were coming up in the Austin music scene. It's a beautiful thing. And I think that no matter, when I've like spent time in other cities, places like New York, places like LA, like they have a whole different type of music scene, but there's nothing really like the Austin music scene.
No.
And I think that needs to be showcased on a higher level. And I think we've had this issue in part, like there are a lot of bands that are like from Austin, or musicians that are from Austin that left Austin.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like for some reason, despite Austin being what it is, it's really hard to like get out of the Austin music scene when you're in Austin and to make it onto like any larger stage. But I think that we're seeing right now, like, people like, Spoon is one of the biggest bands that's made, like, I suppose you could say made it out of Austin.
Yeah.
But, people like the Black Pumas now, like that is, I just hope that like Austin is going to become more and more of the music city that it always has been,
right,
on a larger scale.
There's other bands too. Like, I don't know. Have you ever heard of Missio?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, those guys have over 1 billion streams on their thing, and you don't see them at anywhere.
No.
You know
and like,
what I mean?
why don't we?
Blue October is a band that's kind of from here.
Yeah. Here's like the thing that, and this is something I was talking to people about before, is like, why don't we have some weekly show in Austin where it's just like whatever Austin musicians that are cool that are around are just like, we all play together somewhere. Like, why don't we have a hang? That's something that we used to have.
Yeah.
And that's something that, I was talking to, like,
the resentments
about before.
The resentments and the purgatory players are kind of the last bit of that.
Yeah. And I think that, and like, but I think the biggest problem with that is like exactly how we got started on this topic, is that is a music scene. I love everyone in all of those. I try to use in that, but I'm like, where is it for like the people who are in their like 20s and 30s right now, who are starting to discover who they are? People like Nane, like,
right. Why doesn't the guy from Nane come out and sing at the Purgatory Players on a Sunday?
Yeah,
because nobody knows each other, and then we all feel like, oh, that guy doesn't think I'm cool. I'm not going to ask him to come.
And then it just becomes this thing of like, oh, like, we just are like, everyone is in their own music scene thinking that no one else likes them, and I've had that before where I'm like, oh, no one likes me, but like why do we have that segmentation out? Like, why is it like this is that scene? This is that scene. this is that scene. Like, why aren't we just like, why isn't everyone just hanging out together and making music together? Like, why isn't there more collaboration across these? And I think that was one of the amazing things when you know, the Austin Together song came out, that, you know, Adrian worked on.
Oh yeah, that's a good song.
Yeah, and that was something that like the bridging between, and I think that there was still to a certain extent there was like a couple scenes were represented in that, but
right,
that was something where it was like these people from different scenes coming together and being like, we're gonna make this song that everyone is working on. And I like, we have some of that here, but we don't have it really at the scale of somewhere like, you know, Nashville, where it's like everyone is in everyone's studio working on something. And if you look at like a songwriting credit on like albums in Nashville, it'll be like, you know, like 30 people worked on this one song and contributed this one line.
Yeah.
And, you know, the guitars are like these 20 different people, and we don't, like, everyone's just kind of working in their own sphere here, which I want to, you know, coming out of when stuff gets better, that's something that I really just,
why am I drawing a blank on your Maria's, the name of the Maria show? It had a weird name.
It was called the Youngbloods.
No, it was called something else. It had a weird name. There was one you had that had a weird name.
Oh yeah, the Proper Nang.
Proper Nang. There you go.
Yeah. That was something that I was trying to do something at that point. And
Youngbloods was right, same kind of thing though, right?
Yeah. I think that the problem with that was that it was geared towards young artists, which at that point had this issue of, you know,
not
parents
having anywhere to play. And
no, it was more that there were parents who wanted their kids to play more than the kids wanted to play, which caused lots of headaches, and I couldn't do it anymore. But I also still have friends from that I'm close with to this day. I just, you know, I think that I hit a certain point where like I needed to. That's when I started working with people like Mike and Andrew Duplantis,
right,
and Bobby
Grown-ups.
Daniel, and got into that. I hit a point where that made more sense.
You did, like, once you changed your thing and you moved it into the gallery. I remember for a while I did a couple shows there with you.
Yeah. And that was, I think that when I was doing those gallery shows, that was something that I started really trying to do. And I mean, like, you know, it was like, who are the people in Austin that I want to hang out with? And I think that the big things that happen in Austin that are, you know, a bridging between the things tend to usually be about something that's like a competition or like people competing over something. And I've talked to numerous different people and things about like them trying to do like, I want to bring the Austin music community together, and they're like, so we're gonna like hold like an artist competition. I'm like, what? That's not doing that. That's doing the opposite. You're not bringing people together. You're just like having people like compete over something at that point. And it's like, I want to have a situation where people are just, I mean, it's what I described to you with when I was working on this EP, of this realization I had where I was like, I just want to make cool things with cool people that I like. I mean, the two music videos, which I can talk to you about, that are going to be coming out probably over December. So around this time is like there's 3 music videos. One that's already been released at the time that we're releasing this, for Lady in White, and then there's 2 others. There's one for Confidant, and there's one for Aaron. And when I was like, I'm gonna do these music videos for it, and I asked my 2 childhood best friends. One is Des Magnez, who's a phenomenal photographer based out of New York, and I've known her since I was like 4. And then the other person is the guy who did the 2 music videos for my last album, Cole Elmore, who's another phenomenal, mainly sports photographer guy, who is just a cool dude. And I was like, everything I want to do now is I just want to like hang out with people. I want to be creating art with people that I think are doing really cool things. 'Cause why are we like, what's the point other than that, Johnny?
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah, well,
we're
even,
like,
even back to this EP, like I don't want to go. I mean, I do, and and I do accept work. I'm not turning down work by saying this. I would much rather go and do a session like the way it was done with you, as opposed to like some intense fucking chart thing and like, oh, sit over there. You know what I mean? Like that was that environment.
Again, like I've done guitar work for years, and like I've done that environment, and I've even over quarantine I've done a little bit of stuff where I'll record stuff here, but I think that there was a certain, it's not like I'm not trying to romanticize the past in this in any way either, but I think that there was like this thing at a certain point where we were, people would just hang out in the studio. Like if you look at like the folk alt, I don't know what you would call it, but like if you look at the like that old like Guy Clark Austin scene, or like with like Towns and all of these just phenomenal songwriters that came out of Texas, that was like just a bunch of people who were making really beautiful songs. They just would really get really drunk together and hang out all the time.
Yeah.
And birthed all this stuff. And I think if you look at like the old rock and roll, if you look at like, if you look at the Stones, there's a lot of them just hanging out in the studio. Or like, I was listening to, I can't remember. I was listening to something basically that was talking about when Paul McCartney was working on his first solo album. And that like the studio for that was basically, I mean, obviously, Paul McCartney's Paul McCartney, so he has his entourage and stuff, but it was just a lot of musicians hanging out at these studios together.
Yeah.
And it would just be like, oh, you're here, you wanna like record like a guitar track on this?
Right. Well, that's
and
always,
we don't.
I don't take him up on it all the time, but that's Frenchie. Like whenever, I mean, that's how I ended up playing on your thing. I was just sitting there, hanging out at your session.
And that's one of the things I've always just loved. Is just hanging out at the studio and just like making music with people. And like, that was like,
or watching people make music. You came up learning that stuff from watching the people. Yeah,
completely. And I think that like one of the things about that, like that studio day that we keep talking about, because it was, it's not really unusual for me, but it's unusual in general to like record that much in one day. But it's always how I've done it. But like this one day was like, I mean, technically we were working, but it was really just like a bunch of dudes hanging out for like 10 hours. I think we left at like 2 a.m., but it was just like, like it's just a fun time.
Yeah, this year was a little bit different because of that.
Yeah.
Made it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, man.
I'm sure.
Let me ask you this. Do you have any plans for, like, when you release this EP, St. Clair, brilliant EP, I hope you listen to it before you listen to this podcast so you know what we're talking about. If not, we just spoke about a bunch of stuff you've never heard. How are you celebrating this release? I mean, traditionally we have, and I've been talking to people who are doing all different kinds of things, from like creating their own variety show to like, live stream. Like, how do you plan on doing this?
Yeah. I talked for a little while about maybe doing a some kind of super limited capacity socially distanced concert. And I started talking about that probably like late October, and just watching what's been happening across the country. I people have been doing that, and I think that a lot of the stuff that's happening in Austin has been really safe, and Austin has been really smart about the way that they've done everything. But I did come to a conclusion with that, where I was like, I don't want to be responsible for
I had that a few weeks ago.
I don't want to play into this horrible thing that is going on right now, basically. Because there's, I was reading statistics earlier today, not to get on like a somber note, which I think that it's hard not to do when you have a conversation with anyone currently.
Yeah.
But like, someone dies of COVID every 12 minutes in Texas. Correct?
Oh yeah, they said that yesterday was 2,000 people.
Yeah,
and that's just You know, there's more because that's just like, today's
That's what's
Friday.
being reported. That's what they know is COVID, and like not the people that aren't coming in and are just dying in their homes. I mean, it's just so. But it has been really weird to be like, oh, so I'm releasing this now, but what do I do for a release in this common time?
Right.
So, hint, because it's probably coming out over this month of December. I'm basically doing. I'm not going to live stream it, but I'm doing a series of live videos.
Oh, cool.
Of the songs being performed basically with myself and Goody, who played guitar, and with Mike, who despite he didn't do the main drums because Chris did the drums on this album, and Mike was on the road also when most of the stuff was being recorded, but he I basically sent all the tracks over to him, and he added some different drum stuff and added some different so I would call them for Mike bleeps and bloops. Just weird little things layered in, which I've had him do since recording Jake's for releases I've done. And so the three of us are going to do something because we've all been hermits basically, not leaving our houses, which I don't know. It's been weird, but I'm, still at just this place where I don't really see anyone or go out or do stuff very often just because
I've done a couple things.
So bad.
Small things. I did go to, I went to one of those drive-in shows.
Yeah.
Love and Lightstream drive-in shows.
Yeah.
That was cool.
How was it?
It was cool. Felt safe. I went to Far Out Lounge, and that was safe. It was just weird being around a lot of people. They're pretty diligent about, like, you can't just stand and watch. You got to be at a place in your zone without getting in anyone's face. So, as long as that's, but it's just the numbers are going up so dramatically right now. And, everything else that's so crazy, which hopefully by the time this comes out will be over. But yeah, man. So, all right. So people can look up your stuff. You'll be posting that on WilliamHarriesGraham.com. They'll be on your Instagram.
All over all that stuff. Instagram is I'm not good with social media in general, but
no,
I think
you're not.
Instagram.
I looked at your William Harries Graham music page, and the last post is like from 2019.
But everything is kept very up to date on like the website and on Instagram, which is where I've been kind of starting to tease out like stuff that I'm going to be releasing and putting up, especially around this release. But despite the weirdness of what's going on right now,
dude, I have to tell you,
do my best.
Yeah, well, you're doing a good job, man. It's always sad going to like people's websites now that I'm doing the podcast. I'm like, oh, I wonder where they're playing because everyone has shows and tour dates on their thing, and they're just blank.
Yeah,
some of them say no tour dates to show or something like just sad, just real
depressing.
Sad. Yeah,
it's so. I miss it. I miss it so much.
I miss it too, man.
I miss it,
and I know people miss you, man. They looked at your show as like your show is like your dad's show. It's a thing people do on Wednesday,
I don't know, but I like to think that some people enjoy the stuff I make.
I love the stuff you make, and I'm such a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of you as a person. I love you, and I'm glad that you're doing well. You have a tremendous hat collection back there.
Yeah, they haven't gotten as much use.
No, they haven't
without stuff, but it feeds into my overall home room studio vibe of the hats.
I bet it's a good
little stuff.
It keeps the room quieter.
Yeah. It's actually I engineered it to really limit the sound. It's for the lo-fi sound effect.
The lo-fi sound effect. Well, dude, this EP is great. People need to check it out. St. Clair, go to WilliamHarriesGraham.com or get it on the social or get it on the streaming services and stuff. Dude, it's been great talking to you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
And
love
let's
you,
stay in touch. Yeah, I love you too, man.
For sure.
Stay strong. Tell your parents I said hi.
Yeah.
All right, brother, man.
Of all the places you've been, the thing that you tell people to feel confident. I know that
William Harries Graham. What a lovely human being he is, and what an amazingly talented artist he is. My God, his new EP, St. Clair, available now, wherever it is you stream and download your jams. Go to WilliamHarriesGraham.com for all of your William Harries Graham needs. What a wonderful person to know in this and to have in this world. One of my favorites, man. William Harries Graham. Pleasure to work with him in the Artist Development Program with Austin Music Foundation as well, gang. You can check out those singles. They're dropping now from the new class. You might be able to find these. But Confidant, that's the song we did with William Harries Graham last year. Get out there and check it out from Class 3 of Artist Development Program. St. Clair is the name of the EP. What a great conversation. We talked so much about making it. I'm always fascinated with how he does his music, man. I love William Harries Graham. Gang, don't forget when you're out there checking out St. Clair or WilliamHarriesGraham.com, you can subscribe to this podcast wherever it is that you find podcasts, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, Overcast, Stitcher, anywhere, news shows all the time, definitely every Tuesday and every Friday. Sometimes I do 3 shows a week, which will be Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So subscribe, get new shows, get into the conversations that are happening here in our music town with such amazing artists and fabulous people like William Harries Graham. One of my favorite guys, known him all his life, a talent, a wonderful human. Let's hear the rest of this song, Confidant. I had the pleasure of playing on this. What a lucky guy I am. Have a great day, whatever it is you're doing. Let's get down, gang.